Today we're going to do a comparison against a original Sega Blast City that I've got behind me here and the Chinese copy cab. Yes, the first thing is it's plastic, okay? From head to toe, the whole cabinet is molded plastic. Now, I haven't got the whole thing apart. It seems to be quite difficult to take apart, which is a problem. You know, when you want to try and work underneath it, you can't really take these panels off easily. It's certainly not the same layout in terms of the panel structure as an original Blast, so you need to be aware of that. And of course, the original Blast is made out of a combination of fiberglass and metal. These panels down the bottom here, for example, are, you know, they're solid metal and really quite heavy. You know, with big reinforcements behind it, because of course these were going to be on location, and from a security perspective they have to be solid build, whereas the Chinese copy is all just plastic and pretty poor too. I mean, you could never put this on location. It would, you know, you could easily pry this open. It's just flimsy plastic. Look, I can twist it with my hand. So the quality there in terms of the cabinet, certainly not suitable for on-premise, on location, commercial use. But at home, hey, it's fine. I mean, the actual structure of it is basically the same as the original Blast. So, you know, playing position's the same. You know, screen size is the same. The monitor itself and the chassis is, of course, different. You know, one thing I did notice, though, in terms of the design, and I only just noticed this when these two were side by side, but the Chinese one has a smooth edge around the bottom here, whereas the original carries on its line of this this edge that is raised outwards. So this is just a slight difference in the design, but otherwise, guys, they're pretty much one for one. But let's have a look at just some of the little subtle differences, just so you know. The main marquee, the plastic marquee, this, although it looks the same in terms of the size of it, with this one, they are different. They're subtly different. The other thing is, of course, is that with the Chinese copy, we've got these extra buttons and this key, and you don't have that on an original cab. And so on the copy, because it's generally shipped with some form of game board, the way it's set up is that, you know, you can exit out of a game and you can also put a coin in. You need to be careful too, if you do buy one of these, do you find that the coin button isn't working, then please check this key and make sure you've got this key with it if you do buy one, because you have to have that in the on position for that button to work. And that would make sense if this was a sort of an on location machine and you could take that, you know, lock that out so you couldn't get free play. But again, the quality of the cabinet is such that you really can't put this out on location, guys, anyway. So that's the differences up the top. We move to the middle section of the cabinet. The main thing is the screen, of course. Now, they are the same size. Because I haven't taken this Chinese one apart, I'm not sure if the fittings would be there to be able to rotate it in a vertical orientation. You can do that with the Blast. It's a manual process, but it can be done. So there might be a difference there. And sorry, I haven't actually checked to see if that's been done. I haven't seen any of the Chinese candy cabs on the internet with it in a vertical position, so it may not be able to do that. The other thing that's really important is the monitor itself. And this monitor is just a low-res 15K arcade monitor, which is great, you know, for majority of games. If you're playing MAME or using the games family that comes with it, which has variations of MAME on it, then that's fine. You know, 95% of the games will run nicely on that low-res monitor anyway. And even some of the medium-res ones, they use some interlacing techniques to show them. So there's really no problem there. But the screen on the Blast is recognized as one of the best in the industry across all the candy cabs, and I haven't got this one going yet because it's still in a project form, but everything that I've read really points to this screen being of a much higher quality. You can plug in a PC through the VGA input that it has, which you can't do on this one. So there is that benefit as well, and run it right up to 31K at 640 by 480 resolution. That just provides a little bit more flexibility on the Blast for connecting up a PC and having that slightly higher resolution, especially for your front end. So there's those differences. And then guys, we've got the speaker panels, and the speaker panels on the clone are molded in here, actually molded on top, like raised, and it's just plastic along here as well. Whereas the inserts on the Blast are separate inserts, which unfortunately can be pushed in. They are a metal insert, and this one here has been pushed in when this cab's been moved around. The speakers on the Chinese copy were terrible. They have been changed, but they were really just a flimsy, almost like a paper cone speakers, and they weren't shielded. So when I picked the game up, the whole top of the screen was completely out of whack in terms of colours, and I needed to do a degousing of that, and you're going to have that problem with the standard speakers in there. Whereas the Blast City apparently has some quality speakers in there. They're slotted in behind here, sort of a cassette style speaker, whereas the one in the Blast were really just the standard round ones that were offset at the back. It's a pretty cheap solution there. So I'm expecting the speakers will be better in the Blast anyway in terms of factory to factory. Okay, so we get down to the control panel, and first thing to note is that the actual controls themselves are pretty low quality. And in fact, this one here, this joystick here is like sticky. You can see it's like it gets stuck. It's not very nice, and it's tall. It's a lot taller than a normal Samurai joystick would be. The buttons are higher raised. They're very clicky with the micro switch underneath. So the quality of the controls are, you know, basically rock bottom. They work, there's no problem there, but they're not that great. Now the Blast, I don't have a new set of controls on here. This was the standard ones that were on here before, and they do need to be changed. But straight away I can tell that, you know, the Samurai joysticks, a shorter throw, it's a lot nicer feel. And the buttons are really smooth, and there's no, I mean, you can hear a bit of a click, but that's not the click of the micro switch as such, just the way that they're designed. In fact, this one that's got the top of it off, you can sort of see it sort of pushes down as a whole complete piece, as opposed to a click on the micro switch. So they're much better designed. The other thing on the panel that you notice is that the instruction space here is different. On here, I don't know what this thing is. It's almost like it's a little change, to put change in here, but given the fact that this is really unsuitable for on location, that's a bit unuseful really. So anyway, that's sitting there, and of course it's not in the same position as the instruction section on the real panel. Now the main panel itself looks to be and measures up to almost be the same, well, actually the same size as this one. But when you first look at this looks like it looked like a sticker on the top here. So I thought that maybe really that's all it was, a sticker, and you know, they punched the joysticks through with some holes through the plastic at the back. But as it turns out, if we open this up, have a look inside, we can see that no, it is actually a panel here, and this is cut out, and there's some screw holes here which are different to the main to the real one. So I don't think they would line up, but the actual size of it might. So it'll be interesting to see if these panels could be exchanged with a genuine Sega Blast panel. That would be interesting. Other than that, we can see that all the controls are wired up pretty nicely in here, but they go straight through and down the back of the cab here. So there's no quick interconnect that we have on the Blast. So we can see here, we've got the wiring, and then you go through to the quick connects, and we've got our on-off button, our volume and monitor controls. And we don't have any of that on the copy. Okay, so no quick connects. You can't change out these panels easily. So if you did want to go, you know, from a 2-player to a 1-player panel, you know, you're not going to be able to do that very easily on here at all. So that's the differences there. The lockdown bar is, of course, a different design, and You can also see I just stuck this in here and through the bottom. It's just a little connection for some headphones underneath, just as a little mod. That's not usually there if you purchase one yourself. So I think that's all the differences between the wiring and inside the control panel. And this control panel does come off. It's like the screws is completely different to how it's designed over here. And I think this would be a real monster to get off. It seems like you've got to sort of take off every single panel to get the whole thing apart. Whereas I know with the Blast you can take these off and get this front panel off relatively easy, which is particularly useful when you want to get it through a tight space, because these are wide cabinets and they are pretty difficult to get through the door. Okay, so that's the control panels, and look how easily this just sort of pops back into place. I'll put this one back. It creaks with the plastic, and it doesn't line up. You've got to sort of coax it into place. There we go. So yeah, it's because it's plastic, and you know, it's just a bit cheap really. If we go back down to underneath here, the keys that you get, I'll have to lock this up, get that key out. The keys that you get are, yeah, just these standard sort of key locks often used on PCs and stuff like that, I guess. And the first thing I noticed when I opened this, it was really loose and rattly, and I ended up having to had to modify this with a bolt to really tighten that up. You can see there I've got some washers on there to tighten that up, so otherwise I was rattling around. And like the real one, this actually comes off as a piece, but again, it's just plastic. Inside, we have a games family setup, which is effectively just a small form factor PC. And on the top it has a jammer board, and it has a jammer harness, and a power supply. There's a PC power supply in there, another supply for the monitor, and that's really it. And it's got another little small daughter board, which I've got up here somewhere, used for 3 and 4 players. You can actually hook this up to another candy cab. So you could have 2 of these, and you could have player 1 and 2 playing on one cab, and 3 and 4 playing on the other cab. And the Sega Blast does some similar stuff, but obviously with different hardware. So it's not a bad setup in terms of what you get, but the base games family setup, you are given a really crappy 10 gig hard drive, which I've got just stuck over the side here at the moment. And this is actually on a longer cable connection, which I've added because the one that comes with it is literally about 1 inch long. So if you wanted to put another hard drive and position it where you wanted to, you really got to change that out. But I put this one back in. This is the original one, and I'll fire it up with it. I have actually upgraded it since then. We'll talk about that after, but this is the original one. So I just wanted to show you what it looks like fired up with that original one in there. And of course, it's not all put in there with a proper cabinet or anything, and I need to do that at some stage. Basically, when you buy these, the main PCB is, you know, right around the back, hard to get to, and you can't really add USB devices or try stuff out when it's tucked around the back. So I've moved everything around in here, so I've got better access to it. But just be aware that that's how it will be. It will be out around the back when you first buy one. Okay, so that's the main panels. Of course, there's a little coin box in here, which again is pretty useless because you can't use this on location. There we go. And this just falls off. That just falls out of there. And then we've got the little plastic coin box in here. You know, pretty standard. But again, you're not going to use that. You're not going to put this on location. The mechanism, there was a mechanism in the back for the coins, and I've taken that out because it was junk. It was just plastic, and you know, it'd probably break. In fact, here's another funny thing. Actually, on the top here, we do have a coin slot, of course, and you do have the coin slot on the real one. But on the real one, you see that it then transposes to go through here and go through the slot down through the mech and into the coin box. However, that's not the case on the Chinese candy cab. Okay, so got that open, and if we look at how the coin comes in here, oh, hang on, where does it go? It goes from here to here. So you put a coin in and it's just gonna land here anyway. So I don't know if there was supposed to be a guide included normally from here. It does seem a bit odd. It seems it's got a, you know, it does have a coin mech and a coin box as well. Perhaps there was supposed to be a guide there that then followed that through to the hole at the back there. That's probably how it was. So anyway, not on my one. Okay, so that, guys, really is the differences from a physical hardware perspective. Now clearly, because the real machine is metal, has metal components, it's prone to rusting. And they aren't new, of course, so you can see this one, I haven't restored it at all yet, and it's got, you know, some rust and bits and pieces to fix up. Whereas on the plastic one, you're not going to have that issue. So as a home, you know, candy cab, the Chinese one's actually pretty, you know, it's a pretty good deal. It's got the right shape. You could swap out the controllers, and I'm going to certainly do that anyway. I'm going to see if I can actually swap out the whole panel. But at the very least, you could swap out all the controls. The screen itself is perfectly fine. It does have a little bit of convergence issues. I'm not sure why that is. The chassis itself is effectively brand new, whereas the chassis for the Real Sega Blast are hard to find, and they are prone to failing. There's this black goop of death thing that you can look up, which can kill the chassis. So, you know, there's some extra expense and extra risk associated to the real one as opposed to the newer monitor here, but obviously lower resolution and, you know, certainly not as good quality as what you would get on the Blast if you're very picky about those things. Let's fire up. This is the other difference on this cab, is that we have an on-off switch up here, and we don't have that, of course, on the Real Blast City. When it fires up, you can see that it's completely out of sync because it's booting up at a resolution that the monitor can't handle. You can also might have just made out there some Chinese characters, because this is the operating system that it's running is a hacked version of Windows 2000, but the Chinese version. So that's what they include with the games family setup. Because of that, it's all sort of locked down and you can't get to the operating system and change things easily. So if you want to add extra games or change the setup, you can do it. You have to take the hard drive out of the machine, put it onto another machine, hook it up, and then go through a manual process of finding the right files and making the amendments. But that's not easy. It's not too bad once you know, but it's quite complex the way that, or, you know, they've got it set up in the back end there, because it's not really been set up for people to make changes themselves. There is the front end, I think, is Mainwire, I think is the name of the front end that they based it on. They had a variation of that. But this is what you would get. This is the standard, you know, setup that you get with the Chinese cab. Of course, with the Blast City, you know, you can put all your genuine boards in there, and it's got a slot to put them in, and we don't have the real power supply in there, but you'd be able to hook that all up. But again, if you could put a games family in the Blast as well. That's not a problem. Got a jammer harness in here, so it's also pushing out mono sound through the jammer harness to the two speakers. This is what you get. This is sort of the setup, and I've found that you know, with the games that are on here, if it's a vertical mode game, then it's stretched. And you'll see here, it is completely the width of the screen, which is not the way you want to play any of the vertical games. So this should actually be a vertical orientation and not in widescreen. So yeah, you've got that problem with this. I recommend that if you do get a games family that you do update it. Now there is a guy on Aussie Arcade that has released a converted image or an updated image, and he's configured it so all the vertical games play properly and are letterboxed, and also added some other games to the setup. So check out Aussie Arcade and see if you can find that image. Now I took it one step further. After having that image and playing with it for a bit and adding my own setups and changes, I really got tired of having to take the hard disk out of here and putting it onto the other computer to change. So really I started looking into converting it into you know, a higher operating system, or an English operating system anyway. And I did try Windows 7 first of all to see if I could get away with that, but the hardware that the games family uses, not compatible. You can't get the display drivers to work under Windows 7, which is unfortunate. So the only opportunity really for an English OS is to convert it to XP, and that's what I did. And that was actually a huge process to do. Take this one out and the original, a little 10 gig drive. And by the way, that 10 gig drive is prone to failure. If you are going to keep that drive in there, then back it up. Better still, get a newer drive and put it in. The drive isn't a you know, the latest SATA type drives. It's the parallel interface, the parallel ATA or the PASA interface. So, you know, you're sort of stuck really having to use older drives. Now there is an update, I think, to the games family where they have included an Atom processor and an SSD, I think. I'm not sure the performance of that, so that is being released. But if you do get one of the older games family, then you will be stuck with the older hardware. It all works fine, but you've just got to be aware of those limitations. Now, I guess the other thing is that in terms of updates, what I've done, just so you know, the sound was terrible as I mentioned before. So I've got a 2.1 aftermarket PC solution in there, and a little volume knob inside here. And that is now, instead of going through the jammer sound, is connected straight up to the board itself, going out of the audio out on the board. So I can actually get stereo. If I had any games that supported stereo, I could get the stereo out of there as well. The other thing that you'll notice is that I have a water-cooled solution on top of the chip, on top of the processor. The processor that comes with it is a Celeron, I think it's 1.9, 1.8, 1.9. It's not good enough to run things like Mortal Kombat 3 and NBA Jam and those sorts of games, so you do need to upgrade it. And the good news is you can upgrade it, and so you can put in a Pentium 4 2.4 right up to 2.8. I've got a 2.4 in mine because I had a spare PC with a 2.4 sitting in it, so that came straight out and went straight in. The original chip is 400 megahertz front side bus, and I know some people got confused thinking that maybe it was the only one it supports, but it does support the higher 512 megahertz front side bus on the P4 2.4, and I think up to 2.8. Certainly works on the 2.4, that's what I've got in here. And with the cooling on top was absolutely necessary because it was just too damn loud. The standard Pentium 4 fan is just a shocker. It sounded like a jet in here, and that was made worse because at the back of the cab there was a really cheap, horrible fan, and I ended up, that was, you know, for the whole case, and I ended up removing that. It's not needed in there. And the other fan now that's on top of the processor is pushing the air around there, and that seems to be good enough. So yeah, a few little mods there to improve the performance. I didn't need to put any more RAM in there. You can actually upgrade the RAM, I think, but yeah, that's not really necessary. But the processor, definitely upgrade that, put a water cooler on it. That water cooler I had to mod and chop up a little bit because you can't actually get them to suit a P4 socket, but if you get one of the later ones you can actually modify those, just drill a couple of extra holes in, and then you can fit it on there yourself. So that's the hardware updates, the sound, the processor, going out stereo, the cooling is changed, and of course the hard drive was updated, and now I'm running XP, so I can also modify the image further with a lot more ease. So some good upgrades there if you do decide to get one of these cabs those upgrades can really sort of, you know, improve the value of the machine really, and the usability of it. So that's pretty cool, and something to think about if you're thinking of getting the Chinese over and above buying the more expensive original. So give us a moment here and I'll just swap this hard disk out and I'll just show you what it's like when we boot up to an XP image. Okay, so I've got the XP image in there now, guys, and the same flashing boot sequence here. And yeah, you know, I'm pretty pleased with this Chinese cab, you know. It does everything in terms of playability. Once you do these little upgrade mods, it really is a good option as a, you know, a main PC. And we can see the familiar welcome from XP and the noise that we didn't get before. There's the XP screen. And now it's flicked over to the new image, which you can see is called Flynn's. Now this is the basis of this image, is the one that's available on Aussie Arcade, and so all the games have been updated. We can see here there's 132 in this favourites area. I can flick across and there's 1,091 of, you know, pretty much the best games. And now if we go to any of the machines which require a vertical orientation, we hop in there, we'll see that that is indeed in vertical and not widescreen. So, and there's been some other little configuration changes in there to get the to get it nice and smooth, so you know you're not getting any flicker and that sort of thing. So yeah, guys, so that's the setup there. If I hop back to the main menu, the other thing that you'll notice is that it also has a jukebox, because you can really run anything off this front end. And so on this image, a jukebox was added, which is the DW jukebox software. We get into the jukebox interface, and of course I can't allow the music to play as a copyright, but this is pretty cool to be able to select any of your music in here and just use the buttons A, B, C, D and 1, 2, 3, 4 on here to choose the song that you want. So there you go, guys. That is the comparison between the Real Sega Blast and the Chinese copy. Hope you got something out of that, and you can see now, you know, what you might be thinking about purchasing and the differences between the two. I certainly think that if you're on a budget and you want just a really good main cab, then the Chinese copy is actually a really good way to go. And you could change out the hardware completely in there. You could put a Jammer Pi in there and hook it up to the Jammer interface. There's another way of going, or any other 60-in-1 or the Pandora's box. They're all solutions that you can use in the Chinese Candy Cab copy. Doesn't rust, it's brand new. You got a new monitor chassis. You know, the monitor is maybe not as good quality, but it's still very, very nice to look at. So I think it's a good solution. If you wanted to just get it and use it as is, it's okay. You might have problems with the speakers, you know, causing magnetism on the monitor and pulling the colors, so you may have to change those anyway. That's certainly how the cab was when I picked it up. So you might have to do those minimum changes to it, but otherwise it's plug and play and off you go. So if you're not into configuring stuff and you know, getting behind the scenes to change it and customize it how you want it, then it's a great way to start. If, however, you want a little bit more quality, if you want the solid build of the original, then clearly that's the way to go. If you feel that the original Blast is a little bit like getting an original cab as opposed to like just a MAME copy, then you will also be, you will enjoy more getting the Sega Blast, the original. But you just got to remember that you've got the metal panels, you've got the rust potential, you've got the monitor chassis, which can be hard to find if it's damaged. Make sure that if you do pick one of these up, the chassis is good, or you've got access to a chassis, or that could be a big problem for you. But other than that, it really comes down to then dollars, you know, how much dollars you want to spend. If you want to get one of these that's fully restored, you know, you will be paying top dollar, but it is an amazing, you know, top quality machine. You'll be very happy with it going forward. So there you have it, guys. That's my take on the two machines. I was quite fortunate that we ended up getting a real one after getting the Chinese copy, so we could make this comparison. Hope it was useful. Look forward to seeing you next time for the next video, and until then, ciao for now.